All right, let's just dive right into this explainer because today we're exploring something that honestly sounds like pure science fiction. We're talking about the centuries-long quest to manufacture the world's most fascinating natural material, spider silk. Just think about it for a second. Spiders create this stuff at room temperature entirely inside a living body out of the exact same basic building blocks as your hair and skin. Yet it boasts physical properties that completely defy modern industrial engineering. So we're going to unpack exactly what makes this material so miraculous, why it has been so impossibly difficult to harvest, and the wild genetic workarounds scientists are using today to finally bring it into our everyday lives.
To really kick things off, we have to talk about the pop culture myth that put spider silk on everyone's radar in the first place. We all know that famous movie scene, right? Peter Parker is standing on the front of a runaway train, firing webs at the surrounding buildings, and just barely manages to bring the whole massive thing to a screeching halt. It really begs the question, could real spider silk actually pull that off? Is it truly as strong as steel and tougher than Kevlar? Well, researchers have been testing its absolute physical limits to find out, and the data is completely mind-blowing. But to actually understand those numbers, we first have to clarify what kind of silk we're even talking about. Easy, spiders don't just make one type of web, they actually make 7 totally different kinds of silk. There's one type to anchor the web, a stretchy kind for the spiral, and a completely different sticky silk just to catch prey. But out of all of them, our focus is entirely on something called dragline silk, also known as major ampullate silk. This is the heavy-duty structural thread used for the outer framework of a web, kind of like the thick spokes on a wagon wheel. Its entire biological purpose is to absorb the massive, sudden impact of flying bugs, so it is remarkably strong. To study it, scientists literally have to knock garden spiders unconscious with CO2, tape them down, and carefully milk this specific silk strand by hand using a custom rotating machine. It's a crazy process. But when you put that dragline silk into a machine and pull, the results are incredible. If you look at just the raw breaking stress, experimental ultra-high-strength steel can withstand nearly 3,000 megapascals of force, whereas typical dragline silk breaks at around 1,600. So steel wins, right? Well, actually, no. Steel is roughly 6 times denser than spider silk. The real secret here lies in what engineers call specific strength, which is strength relative to mass. Because a silk rope of the exact same mass and length as a steel rope would be 6 times thicker, it can actually take roughly twice the force of steel before breaking. Ounce for ounce, spider silk is the undisputed champion. Now, here's the crucial point. Strength alone isn't enough to make a material truly incredible. Think about a rock climber taking a fall. If their rope was perfectly strong but completely stiff, stopping instantly would generate enormous forces that would just break the climber. The rope absolutely has to stretch to absorb that kinetic energy gradually. Well, spider webs operate on that exact same principle. If a web was built like a stiff brick wall, a flying insect would just bounce right off of it. Spider silk has to stretch significantly to gradually decelerate the bug, giving the web time to stick. That total energy absorption, the combination of strength and stretch, is what we call toughness. And when we actually measure that toughness, the data will make your jaw drop. Kevlar, the incredibly stiff material used in bulletproof vests, maxes out at about 50 megajoules per cubic meter. High-strength steel hits about 170. Your everyday standard garden spider silk beats both of them at 205. But the true champion lives deep in the jungles of Madagascar, the Darwin's bark spider. This thing casts giant 25-meter webs over wide rivers, and its silk possesses a staggering peak toughness of 520 megajoules per cubic meter. That is roughly 3 times tougher than the absolute strongest experimental steel on the planet and 10 times tougher than Kevlar. So how does it do this? This unbelievable combination of strength and stretch happens entirely at the microscopic level, inside spider silk proteins called spidrines. These spidrines arrange themselves in 2 very distinct ways. First, you have nanocrystals, where the proteins are rigidly stacked together, almost like cardboard egg trays, to withstand massive pulling forces. Second, you have amorphous regions, where the proteins are much less ordered and free to change shape. They act exactly like a brilliant network of tiny rigid blocks connected by highly elastic cords. The elastic cords let the silk stretch to absorb energy, while the rigid blocks connect multiple cords together to safely distribute all that force. Naturally, humans have known for centuries that this material is absolute magic, but trying to harvest it has been a complete nightmare. Seriously. Back in 1709, a Frenchman boiled hundreds of spider egg sacs just to spin a few stockings for the royal court. Jump to the 2000s, and a team in Madagascar spent years hand-gathering over 1 million golden orb weaver spiders just to make a single cape. So you might be wondering, why not just build a spider farm like we do with other animals? Well, it turns out our quest to harvest silk has constantly run into one hilarious and fatal biological obstacle. Spiders are massive cannibals. You simply cannot put 10,000 spiders in a confined space because they're incredibly territorial and will literally just eat each other. Because of these extreme harvesting bottlenecks, the generally uncooperative nature of individual spiders, and the fact that even a very cooperative spider might only give you 300 yards of silk before snapping the line, natural spider silk is impossibly scarce. Just how scarce? To put this into perspective, 1 single kilogram of natural spider silk costs roughly $7 million. That is about 50 times the price of gold. So yeah, traditional spider farming was definitely never going to work on an industrial scale.
To bypass the whole cannibal spider problem, scientists figured, hey, we can just mass produce the protein synthetically. And over the decades, they made some wild attempts. In the 90s, DuPont put spider DNA into E. coli and yeast, but they just got a fine white powder. In 2001, a German team put spider genes into tobacco and potatoes, yielding a gelatin-like liquid. A company called Nexia even created genetically modified spider goats, hoping to extract the silk proteins from their milk. In one sense, they all worked. They successfully produced raw spider silk proteins. But despite having the raw material, absolutely none of these attempts actually resembled a usable, strong silk fiber.
The reason all those synthetic attempts failed is that they lacked nature's impossibly complex spinning process. Having the raw protein just isn't enough. You have to process it exactly like a spider does. It starts in the spider's tail where spinnerins are secreted. Then, in the storage sac, the spider uses its internal pH level like a chemical dial, tuning it so the proteins carry a negative charge and repel each other, keeping them liquid. Next, in the spinning duct, mechanical shear forces stretch the protein globules while the pH drops, neutralizing the charge so the proteins start linking up. Finally, right at the spigot, a rapid physical stretch stitches everything together with hydrogen bonds. It instantly transforms a liquid into a solid, incredibly tough web. It's a chemical and mechanical masterpiece. Since recreating that microscopic spinning process in a lab proved completely overwhelming, scientists had a massive revelation. What if we just used an animal that already comes with a biological spinner built in? This led them straight to the silkworm. Humans have been successfully farming silkworms for nearly 5,000 years. Fun fact, the Byzantine Empire actually smuggled silkworm eggs out of China inside hollow canes just to break a trade monopoly. Today, we farm them by the millions, and a single moth lays 500 eggs every 30 days. The new mission was clear: inject spider genetics into the silkworm and hijack its spinning duct to do the hard work for us. To pull this off, researchers used a natural cut-and-paste jumping gene called piggyback, which literally snips a piece of DNA and inserts the spider silk gene right into the silkworm's genome. They even used green fluorescent proteins so the successful transgenic cocoons magically glow green under certain lights, which is super cool. However, there is a catch. The resulting fiber is still mostly silkworm silk, containing only about 6 to 10% spider DNA. But here is the crazy part. Even with just that tiny 10% fraction of spider DNA, these fibers still achieve about 60% of the mechanical performance of pure spider silk. But obviously, 60% isn't perfect. The reason for that limitation is that the piggyback method only looks for a really short 4-letter DNA sequence when inserting the new genes. Because that short sequence appears all over the genome, the spider genes just kind of park randomly, often entirely missing the targeted silk gland. So, to push past that partial strength average, leading labs are now moving to CRISPR-Cas9. This advanced tool uses a highly precise 20-letter guide, allowing scientists to completely knock out the native silkworm silk gene and replace it exactly with pure spider genes. It is the ultimate dream: 100% pure spider silk spun entirely and cost-effectively by worms. Zooming back out to the industrial level, this isn't just a theoretical lab experiment anymore. Facilities are already harvesting half-ton bales of this transgenic silk right now. Brands like the North Face have experimented with these proteins in high-performance, biodegradable outdoor clothing. The U.S. Army is funding research into ballistic shoe packs and layered panels for next-generation incredibly lightweight body armor. And over in the medical field, companies are using spider silk's unique properties to create advanced implants that actually help repair damaged human nerves. The scalability of this supermaterial is finally becoming a total reality. But bringing it all back to our Spider-Man hook for a second, a researcher recently took a 10-strand bundle of this new transgenic silk to a climbing gym for a real-world physical swing test. And yes, amazingly, a strand of this silk thinner than a human hair can indeed hold human weight. But the test revealed a genuinely terrifying twist. As the researcher put it, "You've got to see my finger, man. It's thin, it's strong, and it just rips you open."
The silk is so microscopically thin and its tensile strength is so completely unyielding that holding onto it under human body weight makes it act like a surgical blade. It's sliced right into the tester's skin. So, stopping a train? Yeah, you're definitely going to need some heavy-duty gloves.
It's wild to think we have gone from boiling egg sacs in the 1700s to trying to milk goats for spider proteins to finally mastering the genetic code with glowing silkworms and CRISPR. We have essentially cracked the code on the world's toughest natural fiber. So I'll wrap up this explainer by leaving you with this thought. Take a look around your daily life, from the clothes on your back to the seatbelts in your car. As this newly scalable supermaterial enters mass production, what physical materials in your world will transgenic spider silk replace next?